You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith. Johnson.
From the AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Shameless After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Shameless After Show.
Welcome, everybody. Bing is for doing. We're here doing Season 3, Episode 7, A Long Way Away from Home. Welcome. I'm your host, Phil Svitek, joined alongside yet again.
Hi, I'm JJ Jurgens.
And not replacing, but at least for this week, Dre, we have a very special guest, John Kassir.
I'm actually JJ Jurgens.
Welcome. And for those of you who don't know, John has a new movie out called Jack and the Giant.
Jack the Giant Slayer.
There you go.
Jack the Giant
And
Slayer.
we will definitely talk about that.
It's the #1 in the box office this week.
That's right. It's a great movie. I had a chance to see it, so I can't wait to talk to you about.
Excellent.
Talking to you about that movie.
But first,
tonight's agenda. Let's get into Shameless.
Movie.
I thought very sad episode overall. Oh my goodness.
I never like to think of Shameless as being sad episodes. They're always so challenged. It's kind of you root for them. You know what's amazing about this show? How they can get you rooting against everything that has to do with the system, even if the system is right. Because they have these actors are so good, and the characters have such heart.
It's true.
Great. I love the show. I love the show. And this particular episode, it seems like every other episode that they've written so far led up to this episode somehow.
Yeah,
there were so many that flashed back in my head when they were, bringing up why Frank shouldn't have the kids and the whole deal.
Yes, and it was fun because we had Shinola, who plays V. She told us that this was coming, and it was definitely worth the wait.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic.
Yeah, she talked about the courtroom scenes and how moving they would be, and yeah, she was right.
She was.
Good stuff.
Let's start with Carl because he's getting adjusted, and I love, you want to talk about the system. Why else have channels besides to watch where you're not supposed to?
Yeah.
Which I found funny. I like the sort of storyline. The fact that he's still curious. It's great to see.
Oh yeah. Well, the kid. They started out making the kid a psychopath. Blowing up stuff and everything. He was such a great kid, and now he's just he's starting to delve into real life situations that aren't unrealistic, which is great. These kids that they've hired to play these parts are so great. I never really think of them as actors at all.
Yeah.
There's and he's especially. They're all good, but especially tune into this kid and totally believe where he's at.
Yeah, especially this season too. He's so fun. I just love that. He's just a little shit, but he's got that smile, and you just love him. And I can't wait to always see what bad thing that he's gonna do next or what he's gonna get into.
Well, he's at that age too where they don't edit. We'll come back. We'll come back after you leave this place and get the security code so we can go back and rip off this place. He's telling his little brother that Lip is telling his little brother that and the kids because he's teaching them how to survive like a Gallagher. How the Gallaghers are going to have to survive.
Was there a moment in that scene where Lip was kind of like, wait, they're actually being good parents? Was he kind of considering, wow, this is actually a good situation for Carl to be in?
Well, yeah, and I think probably also don't complain too much. They're trying to be good parents. He's always kind of facetious anyway, but he meant that with true heart. It was a nice moment. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's great to see Carl. Again, not too much there, but nice comedic relief in the end with Carl. A little bit of a slightly bigger storyline, Debbie. and the sweatshop.
Working in the preteen sweatshop.
I didn't write down the equation of what was it? 2 earrings for fries and the.
Yeah.
Yeah, and whatever for the burger
For the
and
burger,
with
yeah.
Mama Kamala. It's just terrible.
Yeah, she's really great. That kid too. You know, she always seems to be, you know, the nurturer. You know, following the footsteps of her sister. So, you know, in that situation, she kind of took, you know, did the same thing Fiona would do.
Yeah.
Which was kind of great to see that. They really played that up, which was really nice. She cared as much about the other kids eating as her own self. You know, she's really the empathy of those kids. And I think it was a really smart on the writers to put her in that situation, be working in that situation where, you know, she had to be kind of like the mama bear to the other kids, you know.
Yeah, and what's nice, like with Fiona, you know, Fiona wasn't necessarily taught this, and you know, it's not like Debbie at this moment has Fiona to go to ask her, like, hey, what should I do? You know, she has to come up with that plan on her own.
Right.
Which is, as we later learn, what what Fiona had to do at the age of 6. So I thought that was really nice.
Yeah.
How great was it, Mama Kamala? The glue to her eyes in that moment.
Man, that's visceral. You know, that's one thing I love about this show. You know, it's like they go out of their way to make sure that, you know, a couple episodes back where she was, where Fiona was working in a hazmat situation. You know, I mean, that kind of thing where she was cleaning up, you know, backed up sewage and that kind of thing. They really.
We found out that was brownie mix.
Yeah, we did ask on that one.
In real life. But in the show, you know, I mean, they really go out of their way to get you to feel the visceral things that these people are experiencing, and it really helped. It's almost like another character in the show.
Yeah.
You know, the way that they do that kind of thing, and seriously, you start going, oh my God. The idea of having crazy glue on my eyelids. Oh, you know, just thinking about it for a second, you know, all of a sudden you're smelling the crazy glue. You know, you
know how it was when your
not
fingers,
huffing, mind you.
It would get stuck together. It was bad enough. I can't imagine your eyes.
Yeah, everybody kind of gets their due. There's a certain amount of morality play to this. You know, the Gallaghers are just surviving, so we forgive that. You know, there's the cause and effect of what happens to them. I mean, the big theme in these shows is cause and effect. You know, if you do this, something else is going to happen down the road. You know, we faked the will, so, you know, and as a result, now they may lose the house, you know, kind of thing, which is kind of amazing, but it's great to see other people get that. You know,
in return.
In return,
and, you know, speaking to your point about sort of the production design, what was, in terms of the sweatshop downstairs in the basement, at first, you know, when you kind of went in there, it was, you know, it was the details, as we see later on with Deb, you know, now she's got the sweat, whereas first she doesn't, so I felt it was the right amount of sweat to really give her. Because you could see, you know, on their faces, they were really tired at that point.
Yeah.
Which, again, you know, sometimes it can be overlooked, but they didn't do that with this, you know, and so visually it tells us, wow, they're really being worked.
There's somebody who has a job is standing there with a glycerin bottle, you know, and it's like, yeah, spritzing. That's what they call for on the set when they do that kind of thing. They come, like, what did you do? No, more spritzing, you know, less spritzing. What is it? She doesn't even look wet. Come on, spray her down.
And by the way, kudos to Debs for knowing Benadryl puts people to sleep.
Yeah, right.
You know, again, most young kids, I don't know drugs.
Yeah.
You know, I wouldn't have known
Definitely
that.
not the, Well, that's how they babysat kids, you know. It's like, you know, was there an early episode where somebody had to babysit the kid and said, just give him Ben?
Yeah, she learned that from Frank.
Frank,
yeah.
That's a good pickup. Yes, she did. So she's learning from her father.
Yeah.
If only she had brought that up in court.
Yeah.
That would have been great.
Yeah, he taught me to swim by holding other kids' heads under the water and taught me how to put the nanny to sleep with Benadryl.
Yes.
Fabulous.
Let's talk about Ian. Again, not a lot happened there, but in terms of him and Mickey, I felt there was a lot going on there. It was a really hard scene, especially we always talk about the look here, you know, and as they referenced it, the look of love, you know. But this week it's the look of pain for Ian when he just couldn't get a response from Mickey. Go ahead.
I think pain on Mickey too. I mean, his stare at that, you know, what he was shooting was just a look of pain as well. So
but what was Mickey painful for?
Well, you know, he doesn't want to come to grips with what his life really is. I mean, he comes from a situation where it's not cool to be openly gay, or be openly love a boy, So he's always been like, you're not my boyfriend. If we do this, nobody's supposed to know about it. Why are you telling that rich, Harry Hamlin character that I'm in on this, kind of thing. So there's a certain level of it. It's like, okay, the line has been crossed. Now my dad knows I got the crap beat out of me. I slept with a Russian hooker. What am I,
Yeah.
It's like all these things. So, I mean, his deal is how does he proceed? How does he live his life now?
Yeah, so I mean, this is more of prediction. So what is the next step for their relationship? Can they mend it?
I think there'll still be backlash to this. I think definitely that. I don't think the father is gonna, Mickey's father's gonna let this lie.
No.
I think that Ian's still gonna get some backlash from this situation. It's gonna come up. Gallagher's gonna have to take on that family somehow.
Is he gonna find support in Mandy or no? Since he's been close with her, she's the sister.
The daughter's back. The woman he loves the girl he loves is back. His baby, what he thought was his baby mama.
Well, Lip. That's for Lip.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, you're talking about
Ian.
Mandy being his best friend, and I was going to say, what the point I was making is that because she's back, there's going to be problems now with Lip and Mandy.
Yes.
So I don't think that she's going to be able to be there for Ian because it's going to wind up being I think there's going to wind up being some kind of family feud between that family and theirs. It's got to be bad blood from all sides.
Yes, and that's a good point that you make because Ian already confronted Lip about, hey, if you're gonna date her, you got to date her.
Yeah.
You got to be there for her, and so I think Ian's gonna side against Lip.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting.
Yeah. It's going to be a real Irish war.
That it will. All right. Well, we're going to get into the meat of this episode, obviously the court case. But before we get there, I want to thank all of you guys for listening, for tuning in every week and writing in, commenting. It really helps us. We do read it. It helps form our opinions. You guys have such brilliant opinions. So please continue to do so. Rate and comment. Let us know how we're doing, and we'll continue to evolve and get better, hopefully, for you guys. All right. But so let's get into the funnier side of things with Sheila this week, with Jody just taking it to a whole new level.
Sheila just really opened up that can of worms. Didn't know she was one.
By the way, props to Zach McGowan for really going there. I mean, they all
He's
do.
had to.
Yeah.
He's had to every episode.
Yeah.
That's the character he's had to play. I'm like, there's always, we were talking earlier just before we watched the show about what, Evan Handler has to go through in Californication. There's always that one character that just gets the most absurd things. I mean, I've been that guy, but, has the most absurd things to have to play every week. And he's got
how do you handle it if you're handed something like that?
Oh, well, you have to treat it like it's a gift. You have to treat it like I can't believe they're writing this stuff for me, because what else are you going to do? You can't go kicking and screaming. It's, there's something about the reason that they're writing that stuff for you and what you're playing as well. So it's kind of a compliment on some level. But, sometimes you have to do some pretty...
What's the craziest thing that you've had to do?
Oh, God, I don't know. I remember that I was on a show called First and 10. It was HBO's first series about a football team. And I played a Bulgarian field goal kicker that could kick 60-yard field goals, but he had all this money. He had no idea of cause and effect and how he'd be, he would just do whatever he thought Americans did, and he was constantly, getting hung upside down by the goalposts or whatever. And Don Gibb had to pick me up and stick my head in the toilet. He had to dunk me in a toilet, and they brought it, and they go, and I said, and when I read it in the script, they go, you guys are going to bring in a new toilet, and we're going to do, he goes, yeah. So we were shooting on college, College of the Canyons. That's the field we were using for our football sequences and stuff. And so we went into the locker room, and they go, yeah, we scrubbed out this toilet. I was like, it's like, dude, are you kidding me? You want me to put my head in that thing? I was like, I'm not putting my head in that thing, It was like, and the producer's like, come on, man, be a sport. I was like, dude, you put your head in that toilet, I'll put my head in that toilet.
And did he?
First thing he was like, Okay, who scrubbed out the toilet? the guy gets the guy already. How would you scrub it? He goes, I did a pretty good job. He goes, not good enough. They cleaned out that toilet again, and I said, are you ready to put your head in it? And he goes, you know what? Let's put a liner in this thing. And sure enough, anytime they've asked me to eat something that's like, you know, nobody would ever want to eat or that kind of thing, because there's no reason for it. There are ways to shoot things so that you can, you know, have it sanitary even though it doesn't look sanitary, and have it safe even though it doesn't look safe, or eat something that looks gross, but, you know, like you were talking about with the
brownie mix.
The brownie mix, you know, it's like...
That looked very gross. It didn't look like brownie mix.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I got you know, I got dysentery while working on the show. You know, you don't want that kind of thing to happen. And so, you know, that's my way out. I go to the producer and I go, well, you know, you want me to eat that? And he, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. By the way, I mean,
It works.
I mean, he did some crazy stuff, but him. By the way, the flexibility that he had in blowing himself, I mean, like, whether he was or wasn't, but it looked like he was.
It for the people that haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, it took him. It took a minute to figure out as you saw it, like where exactly like his feet. You know, how, it was definitely interesting.
I mean, I wonder if he
He's
had
in good shape.
He is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of flexibility.
Yeah. Or either that or a lot of length.
What's that?
Yeah.
Or a lot of length.
Or a lot. There you go. Or a lot of length. So Hymie, you know, kind of.
Are you wondering whether that's actually? Do we actually know that that's the father?
We don't. I don't think we do know that, right? We didn't see him before until
No, we did.
last episode.
And some way
Yeah.
in the way that she told her daughter that he's with his daddy.
I agree
And
with
not
you.
mention who the person was that he was with leads me to believe that somehow at some point they're going to go, oh, he is with Mrs. Wong and her son who's the daddy, and she's like, that's not the daddy. I never slept, or something. You know, I'm waiting for that hammer to drop. Although maybe unless you know, somebody can let us know whether we missed something along the way that would
So
let
why?
us know that.
What is the benefit for Mrs. Wong? Like, you know,
I don't know. That would be what we would be yet to find out.
Yeah,
You know?
but I agree. I kind of picked up on that this episode too. I thought, well, I don't know how do we know that is the dad? And if she is, like last week, he said maybe she's after some sort of money or
Yeah, the
you know,
Gallaghers are
getting-
being Gallaghered, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, they like as Frank said, you know, the other people are surviving like they are. I mean, it sounds like something that they would do, but
Yeah.
you know, I don't know. I'm just curious of that.
I mean, there's
may be
definitely
wrong, but it
definitely
felt
got to be
like
money in there.
It felt like
You
there's
know.
something going on.
And she's like, we could fix the baby.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't think she has an intent to fix the baby.
Herbs fix everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point because she was going
Chinese medicine fix chromosomes.
Yeah, if you're gonna go that stereotypical, you definitely got to be lying, I think.
Yeah.
So I agree with you guys. But that is an interesting point about Karen, and you know, because in many ways I feel like they're gonna have to now steal his baby back.
Yeah.
And you know, it was already hard enough. Well, you know, we didn't know that Karen was coming back this episode, and so just seeing Sheila's face as she's giving away the baby. I mean, this is what caused Karen to leave in the first place. And now that she's given this up, you know, she's pretty much lost everything. Mm-hmm. And it's been, you know, her poor choices. I mean, she made, as she said, the nice thing about mistakes is you get to fix them. But, you know, she broke Jody, so she's got to fix that one. You know, and now she's given him away.
Yeah.
And she didn't have Karen at the time.
Yeah. I think she expects to fix her environment and bring the kid back. There's some great lines in the show, too, and one of them was like, you know, he's made in China, just like him. You know, when Frank picks up the toy and you know, that kind of thing. But, yeah, we'll see. I think that'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I like that storyline. Before, there wasn't much of a story in earlier episodes of, you know, what Joan Cusack was getting to play. I mean, although she was brilliant, everything they're giving to her. But now I love that it's all intertwined and believably intertwined.
And, you know, we kind of talk about this. We have faith in the way the show's going. You know, this is the third season, so we kind of know, okay, trust the writers that they're going to take us down a good path.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of Joan, I can't say enough about her acting. Just those
she's
subtle
great.
moments.
What about Amy?
Yeah.
Oh, Amy, yeah, she's great too.
Wow, what an episode for her acting talents. You know, that when she gave that heartbreaking speech in the courtroom, it's just amazing.
So let's get to that. Obviously, the crux of the episode, and yeah, I thought initially she would be more confrontational, Frank. You know, we always get so riled up after every episode that we feel like it's gonna explode, but she handled it in a definitely feisty way, but not in the way I had predicted, which is what's great about the show. But as you mentioned, John, cause and effect. I mean, she went to a lot of lengths illegally to do this, and now to become a co-guardian with Frank.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a victory, though.
Well, you know,
for
I think she always realizes that Frank, she doesn't have to point that much finger at Frank. Frank will hang himself, you know, in every situation. She just knows that that's going to happen. So as far as like in the courtroom, she just let him talk until she just had to look at the judge and go, see what I mean? You know, it started to feel like, because of the other kids were like, well, yeah, he helped me with camp. And yeah, well, he sent them to cancer camp by lying that he had cancer so he could get, you know.
Was Frank remorseful in those moments, hearing, you know, her story specifically? What was going through his mind? I mean, I was trying to read his expressions, you know.
Well, by the way that they played out the end of the episode, I would say no.
Or
For a moment in there, I thought he was going to be, like, as he was listening, I thought he seemed a little, but I agree, as it went on, it didn't really seem like he.
You know, I mean, he's definitely a, you know, what'd you call it, character of nature. I mean, he's, for lack of a better term, there is a better term, but I can't think of what it is. You know, he follows his nature, and you can, you know, he's a scorpion that stings the frog going across the water.
You know that story too.
Yeah, of course, we all do. But as you know, he's the guy that he's going to sting the frog every time. He can't help himself. I mean, that's who Frank is, and they know that. That's why it's come to this point that she has to take the kids, because as much as she'd like to believe, even through Debbie's eyes, that Frank will come around, he's just proven time and time again. And the last straw was her finding out that he was the one that turned them in.
Yeah.
You know, and so she's like, you know, no more. Frank is gone. Frank is out. And now she has to, you know, deal with him. But, you know, she realizes that, and that's they're tied in together, whether she likes it or not.
For me, you know, I want to know why you guys think she said the story that she did. For me, it was to counteract what Debbie and Carl said for them, you know, so that they understood who their father really was. You know, because they were, you know, isolating those moments of goodness in Frank, but she wanted to let them know, like, you know, that was her, and this are the things that she had to deal with at an earlier age than them. You know, and I think they really took that to heart.
Yeah, I think so too, and I think pointing out that this isn't just a new thing with Frank, and this is what she's been dealing with her whole life, you know, with having him as the dad. And I like I agree with you. I thought it was going to be more of she was going to be up and really animated and really get into it, and I loved the power that she had just sitting there, and by using that example as a story to tell, I thought it was really, really powerful and strong.
Yeah. It's good writing.
And at the same time, though, you know, it was interesting seeing her, because I don't think she was expecting what Frank really could bring.
Yeah.
You know, we hear him joking about it at the bar, but, you know, he's really been through the system. He knows how to lie.
Yeah.
And, you know, unfortunately, as much as she won, I still don't feel like she really won. I mean, he's on a whole different level of all of this.
Yeah.
You gotta bring bigger cannons when you're fighting Frank.
It's sick too how believable William Macy is. Go watch something. There was one night where I watched him in one thing, and then watched this right after it, and it blew me away how different it was. And you know, I mean, you can always see William H. Macy through all that, but he is so believable as this guy in Shameless. It's, you know,
well, I really loved his storyline with the chips. You know, him trying to get the AA chips, then him getting the chips, and then finally presenting them in the courtroom, like, hey, this is my hope right here.
Yeah.
Really nicely tied in. In that courtroom scene, as soon as it's declared that Fiona gets the kids, Jimmy is handed the youngest, and he's holding him, and his disdain as he's holding this child, there's, you know, because we've always kind of talked about it, you know, they've teased it where there's going to be a wedge between them. This is, you know, and I wasn't kind of believing it, you know, there was something, but it wasn't enough for me to say, oh, that's a huge wedge. This is a huge wedge now.
I agree. I always thought that they were gonna, you know, he always seemed to kind of put up with it all and kind of roll with the flow, but now you can definitely see the looks on his face that it's kind of checked out and done, and it's hit the limits, and now.
Yeah, think of the things he's been doing too to keep it to protect her from what he's been living on the side too. And so that's, you know, I mean, it's tragic too because he's lying to her, but at the same time, he's doing that because he wants to protect his situation with her. And now he's like going, is it worth it for me to protect that?
Yeah, I mean,
you know, this was her decision. Doesn't he say something to the effect that this is her decision? Doesn't even realize how it's affecting me when he's talking to her father's his wife's father's henchman.
Yes,
that's doling out the money.
For me, I really love the scene with the judge and Fiona because, you know, we obviously had that moment with Jimmy, but for me, I didn't quite understand from his perspective until, you know, the judge laid it out to her in those moments.
Yeah.
You know, so I thought that was a really nice. It worked really well for Fiona, but it was also a nice device for us as an audience to clue us in on what the circumstances really were. Because you know,
they got everybody involved. They got everybody involved in all the storylines. I mean, this series has definitely evolved from what are these people going to do to survive, and how fun can the show be to see how far people will go to survive in this situation, to storylines that are all coming to a head and are all, you know, really well defined. Characters are well defined. What's happening to them, even what's happening to the neighbors. You know. Line of the episode: I don't want Kevin fucking my mom any more than necessary.
Here's my thing about that. I felt we did it last week, but knowing that that they still have to do this, that's the most painful part about it.
Yeah. Well, so, you know, they have to suspend a storyline for a little while to come back to it. You know, which is hard to do in series television, but they're pretty successful in this show. I mean, you can see by this episode that we just watched how many storylines came to a head in the same scene. It was amazing. It made you think about so many different things that have happened through the first couple of seasons of this series, just in that one courtroom scene. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. And everybody, but they're all in it together, so it's always, they're all helping each other. There's always, you know, it's a survival family, and it's, you know.
Well, and we predicted with B that it wasn't going to take.
You guys did. I was really hoping. I mean, my gosh.
Yeah, but I thought when I thought it wasn't going to, I didn't think they'd keep trying. Like, I thought that was going to be done with, like, they'd go to the next plan, like we talked, maybe adopting or whatever, and I thought they would maybe just have one eventually and find out that they could. But but I didn't think
a lot of people probably are hoping. Yeah, I think a lot of people are hoping that it really doesn't take, you know, because it's a little. It's just a little odd and unsavory on some level, but it's
my goodness.
Where he tries to have sex with her like a Hasidic through the sheet.
Yeah.
You know? I was like, unbelievable. I can't breathe.
Yeah, with no hole for her mouth, but just for her.
I mean, and you know, from next week's previews, they're gonna try again. They keep trying, and I mean, how could they top the Holy Trinity? That's what I call that position, the Holy Trinity. Blasphemous Trinity or something like that. We gotta call it. Going back to Jimmy, you know, you JJ had a disgusted look or angry look. I don't know how to describe it when you saw Jimmy consider, like, hey, I'm gonna get her off now.
Yeah, hoping he could last more than 10 seconds on that one.
Why did he do it?
I was disgusted. I've always been in Jimmy's corner and, like, had his back.
You forgave him last time, right?
I did. Yeah, I just.
But now you can't forgive him.
No, I can't. Now I'm not forgiving him.
But his life's on the line.
But that was just like, that to me was just a guy wanting to get some, like, there was no need for him to do that, you know, and I just felt sorry for Fiona, and so now I'm not on him.
Do you disagree,
Team Jimmy
John,
anymore.
or no? That he had to do it?
Well, I feel like that the way they're justifying it in the show. You know, I mean, we're all going to. It's subjective because that's supposed to be subjective. The writer's very clever at putting it in your lap is subjective, and everybody's going to have feelings about it. You know, for me, I'm willing to cut him some slack for a while until he figures out how he's going to deal with you know, his legal wife's mafiosa, you know, dad. You know, a cartel dad, how he's going to deal with that. In the meantime, he's just trying to stay alive.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be doing any of this stuff if it wasn't about him just trying to stay alive.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the way he runs out of there, how long is that storyline going to be believable to the other characters?
Yeah, and part of
his mom is having trouble. He keeps having to run out for his mom, you know.
And part of why I'm willing to cut him a little bit of slack this week for that is because you know, he's trying to gain.
She was hot.
There you go.
Look at her buns.
There's that reason, but there's also, you know, he's trying to get money for his family, you know, and so by pleasing her and keeping her in good graces, you know, maybe he can get some, as he says, walking money.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's the reason, then all right, I'm willing to believe that. Anything else that you guys want to bring up, whether that you guys found humorous, anything that we missed that you guys want to talk about?
Well, it's definitely. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you good.
Oh, please, ladies first.
I only had a small one. I just thought we kind of brushed on it, but with the Frank getting like the chip and going to the AA and meeting and trying to convince all them to basically start drinking, and then we see that woman run back in the bar. I thought that was a funny little moment from the meeting.
This is why white kids are flocking to Allah. Is another one of the best lines in it, you know.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, it's funny. It's definitely a different world that these people live in, and you know, one that's not familiar to the rest of us, but they're still somehow relatable because we all hate, you know, what we have to deal with the red tape of surviving, and we all hate spending an hour, you know, with the phone company every month because they can't get our damn bill right, and they do it constantly on purpose. So they figure we'll finally just give up and pay it, even though we're paying the wrong amount. And this family never gives up on any of it. They're not willing to cut anybody any slack on anybody because they can't afford to, which is really, you know, an amazing aspect of it. I love when they're taking the dead woman that's supposed to be their aunt, the Jane Doe or whoever it was, and put her on the bed, trying to cut off the toe, and I just was mumbling under my breath. I was like, you know, this poor old actress that was playing the part was telling her grandchildren, well, you know, Grandma kind of got a walk-on part. I'll be naked and dead, and, you know, and then get my toe cut off. It'll be, you know.
I mean, what?
That's a committed actress.
That really was, and you know, it was kind of. It was funny in the moment of the guy, you know, hitting on Fiona, but then we obviously know why it kind of played. It was a nice, an indicator of what was to come. You didn't know what was coming, but it was a foreshadow of something's wrong. And then, you know, I thought, you know, when they teased it in the last week's preview of the will, I thought that was Frank's doing. You know, because she let him know, and I thought Frank would be quick enough to figure something out. But the fact that it's Patrick and he filed it a year ago. Obviously, what's nice is now this is even worse, which I love. So it's great that you guys brought that up because, I can't believe we didn't talk about the dead body.
Yeah.
I was just trying to block it out of my mind, I guess.
No, it's a serious thing that's coming up. I mean, you know, that's the big thing.
I mean, you know, and especially if you think about it, the goal was to keep Frank out, but now to really lose that house.
Yeah. So the next big hurdle.
And what's even worse is that it's her fault for doing this. You know what I mean? Fiona never really likes to admit it. She likes to hold Frank accountable, but at the end of the day, they always end up needing Frank in some sort of way.
Right.
And that's the unfortunate thing. And, you know, but most of the times he's cleaning up his own messes. This is really her mess.
Yeah.
So I look forward to that. I think that about wraps up this episode.
I think so.
All right, so let's switch gears and let's talk with you, John, about your career and obviously Jack and the Giant Slayer.
Jack the Giant Slayer. Jack the Giant Slayer is my current project, maybe one of the best projects I've ever had in my life. It's just really cool. Obviously working with Bryan Singer, who's, you know, amazing director to work with, and Bill Nye, you know, playing a character with Bill Nye. I mean, he's just like the coolest guy ever. I'm like, Bill, you know, let me know if I'm stepping on your process. He's like, John, I don't have a process. You couldn't possibly step on it. You know, which is kind of true because he's just obviously every actor has some process, but he's just so natural, you know, so naturally great at what he does that it was a sheer pleasure working with him.
And real quick for those listening who may not know the story, what is the story, and you know
who doesn't know Jack and the Beanstalk?
Well, that's what's so great about it. That's what I really love. But what, you know, I had a chance to see it, and what I love about it is that you guys took that notion and made it new and different.
Yeah, the writers did a great job. I actually got the part through one of the writers, Dan Studney, who I did Reefer Madness with.
Oh, wow.
Dan was the co-writer and composer of the music for Reefer Madness, and we worked together over a long period of time doing that LA production, and then of Reefer Madness, and then the New York production, and of course the movie. And Dan, mentioning my name, he was friends with Bryan Singer, and Bryan said, "Oh, I want to meet him. I'm a big fan of his from Tales from the Crypt," you know, and he has a Tales from the Crypt pinball machine in his house and the whole deal. So I went over with Dan one day to meet Bryan, and he's like, "Man, I love you. I'm going to work with you one day." And I was in your scenario, yeah, right, Bryan Singer's going to hire me, you know. And then all of a sudden I get this call, you know, I run into him at a charity event, and he's like, "So do my people get in touch with you?" And I'm like, "About what?" It's like, I want to take you to London with me to shoot this movie that I'm shooting. You know, you're going to be playing a giant. And I'm like, what? I had no idea. But, you know, here I am playing the, you know, kind of disformed head, second head of a two-headed giant. And I'm like, what made Bryan Singer think of me to play that part? You know, which is kind of fun and creepy at the same time. But, and that's how I wound up getting the part.
Yeah, and so you know, your character is kind of the leader of these giants, which I love. I love that notion of, you know, you have to have two heads doing this, and the dichotomy of you know, the one head to your head. I thought it was really brilliant. You know, again, it shows the brilliance of the writing. I thought it was really, really well done.
Yeah. And Bill, and it's also, you know, I mean, they gave us a lot of leeway for Bill and I to create a relationship together. I mean, everywhere my character speaks, it just says "gack" in the script. It just goes "gack," you know, and it describes him as having this, like, you know, creepy, moist utterance. You know, when the princess first hears them in the dark, she's just hearing, you know, kind of weird kind of stuff. And so you know, I just conceived that he had the same speaking abilities as Bill's character, what he had created, but he has no vocal cords, so it comes out the way it comes out.
And for you, you really had to act through your face, you know what I mean? Because you know, he kind of was leading the body, but you know...
Well, shooting it, I don't know if you know how motion capture works, but you're being captured virtually, visually, digitally all at the same time, and you've gone through painstaking technical, different kinds of technical stuff. It's kind of like performing in front of NASA when you're shooting it. It's pretty wild. But they've completely mapped your face with the dots and you know, this kind of phosphorescent paint and that kind of thing, and gotten as many images of what your face can do as possible, mapped it into the computer so that when you step onto this volume and they remap you in every time you come onto the volume, and into these computers and things, and you have sensors on you, and that kind of thing. It recognizes all the information that they've already put in there about you, so that you're in real time. They can see you not as the character, but as, you know, what they call a kabuki version of your character. There's not much to it. It's almost like a cartoon version of it. And so they're capturing you that way, and visually with other cameras and digitally, and you're wearing these helmets with you know, 4 cameras that are capturing the different quadrants of your face. I mean, literally, you have these cameras looking up your nose, as Bill put it, you know. And so we didn't know how we were going to put those two characters together to make one character. So they left it up to us to find what organically worked for us. And what wound up working for us, of course, Bill was, going to be the body, the body of the giant, and I was going to be the head and the right arm. So I would have to mirror Bill. That's where all my street performing and mime training came in, and act separately with my head and my right arm at the same time. So I literally, while we were rehearsing, I would get Bill's rhythms and see what he was going to do, and he would change it up as we were doing it, and I would have to, adjust and just walk just a little behind him so I could see him out of my peripheral, and then act separately with my head and
with your
right
right
arm.
Yeah.
And then they put it all, and then of course when they go back in, they put it back into the computers and all that, and all these geniuses sit there and they design what would be normally be makeup and prosthetics right onto your face, right onto your performance. And then they, the wonderful costumes that Joanna Johnson, designed, they, add those in digitally onto you. And then they start layering it in and making them look more and more real over the span of a year. The guys that designed my face are the same guys that did Gollum's face for Lord of the Rings. And we had a good amount of the crew from Avatar doing, all the, digital domain stuff. And it was pretty amazing. It's a pretty amazing process.
And you had mentioned to me outside that the story started off kind of darker than it ended up being.
Well, it's Bryan Singer. Bryan. There's always. There still is some dark parts to the show, but you're sitting there. You start out, gearing it towards, an adult audience mentality, and realizing that this story has to be told to kids as well. It has to be told to the kids in all of us, and it's that kind of fable. It's a fairy tale. So as we were doing it, and as they were editing and creating and putting it all together, they kept pushing it more towards that, and finding out that audience really loved it, and that's where really where it was going. So we quickly found out in the process that that's where it was going. I think that everybody, when you're doing material of something that everybody has seen or heard before and think that they know what that is, and then to take Jack and the Beanstalk, and we're not doing Mr. Magoo as Jack and the Beanstalk. This is a great action adventure with Ewan McGregor and Stanley Tucci and Ian McShane and Nicholas Hoult and Eleanor Tomlinson, and it's a great action adventure, and we have the most cutting edge technology to bring it to life. I got to see the premiere in 3D, and I can't wait to see it in IMAX, because even in 3D, it feels like you're standing amongst giants. It feels like it's a complete e-ticket. Disneyland could never make it this clear. That's how real it is in front of you, and then at times it feels like you're the giant looking down on humans, and you get that perspective to the point where you get ground rush. It's pretty amazing. I can't.
Yeah,
wait
I
to
definitely got that feeling.
Especially those scenes where you see the giant's point of view coming in on the castle and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's amazing. It was amazing. It's just because the story is so good. It's one of the first movies that I've sat down, and it's hard when you worked on a movie to have that willing suspension of disbelief and lose yourself in the story. It's much harder because you know what's coming, a lot of it, and that kind of thing. And it's the first movie I've seen in a long time where I just forgot that I was in a theater and didn't lose myself out of the story, and I was just there the whole time with it. It was really, really
what
great.
was nice, it hit the beats of the regular fairy tale,
right?
But then it spun its on its axis, a lot of them,
right?
Yeah. So
good point.
And and speaking to your point about how diverse it is, the theater that I was in, young kids to really old people. And,
great.
And they were laughing.
That's great.
Everyone laughed at the right moments.
Yeah.
And it was for me a really enjoyable experience. And I gotta say, I really loved doing Reefer Madness.
Oh, thanks.
For those of you who have never seen that movie, you have to.
I think it's probably on Netflix and stuff now. You can probably pick it up. You certainly see scenes of it on YouTube and that kind of thing. But you want to see the whole movie. It has a great cast. It has Alan Cumming, who you've had here, right?
Yes, we have.
And Kristen Bell. And Steven Weber, who's just one of the funnest people I've ever worked with. Steven, I love. He's like a buffoon in a leading man's body, and he's just great. Anna Gasteyer, Amy Spanger, myself, Christian Campbell and Nev Campbell, his sister, who's his sister, and we all know Nev. And just amazing cast, just really, really wonderful.
And really funny. I mean, you know, to give you guys a little taste of how funny it is, they're doing a Romeo and Juliet. They're reading that in high school, and the kids are so dumb that they think it's Romeo and Juliet. Just brilliant.
Yeah.
JJ, I know you have some questions.
Yeah, I want to talk. I know you've done a lot of voiceover, and we were talking before. You said you tell the story about how you got first started in that.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, as an actor coming from the theater, you know, you quickly realize you don't make much money in the theater. I used to, when I lived in New York and I was doing off-Broadway, off and off-Broadway theater, in between jobs, which was long periods of time, I used to street perform in front of the Metropolitan Museum. That's how I supported myself. And I kind of got known as this guy that would perform out in front of the Metropolitan Museum of Art on Fifth Avenue. And I got in a show called Three Guys Naked from the Waist Down, which was a musical, three-guy musical about stand-up comedians, starring myself with Scott Bakula and Jerry Colker, who also was who penned the piece, who was the writer for the piece. Music was composed by his friend Michael Rupert, who was also a Tony winner for Sweet Charity on Broadway, and it became quickly the hot show in New York. And this was the first year that they introduced Star Search. And this talent scout comes up to me after the show and says, you know, we'd like you to come on and be a stand-up comedian on Star Search. I'm like, I'm not really a stand-up comic. You guys know that, right? I'm just playing a part. And they go, well, you know, you could win $100,000. I went, fuck, did I tell you about my stand-up career, you know? So, you know, I went on the show, and because I really didn't have any jokes, I had done sketch comedy for a number of years with a group called Animal Crackers out of Baltimore. We were kind of like their version of Second City, and we had toured the USO as a comedy group and that kind of thing. And so I, you know, went and grabbed some of my old bits, but most of my material were voices and characters, and, you know, like I would do the Wizard of Oz in 2 minutes, you know, as mayor of the Munchkin City in the county of the land of Oz, you know, and I would do all these different characters, you know, and those were my bits. And I just kept winning and winning, and eventually I beat Rosie O'Donnell in the semifinals and Sinbad in the finals. And I wound up, you know, all of a sudden they're like, you know, you're getting booked opening for Tom Jones in Vegas. And I'm like, I have no act. How am I going to open for Tom Jones, you know? And so I got my ass into the club, and that's where my material gravitated towards doing all these characters and voices and that kind of thing. I used to do the morning announcements with my buddy Fred, and we would do all the morning announcements in high school, and we would, you know, the following morning announcement brought to you by a grant from the Mobile Corporation, and we would do like send up a Masterpiece Theater or whatever, you know, that kind of thing. So it was kind of an obvious direction for me to go with some of my work, and that's when I started getting asked to audition for a lot of voiceover stuff. And once I got Tales from the Crypt, you know, I wound up with the best agents and the voiceover agents in the business. That was originally the ICM voiceover department. Now they're called DPN. My agent over there, Jeff Danis, is amazing. And you know, I've been with them for, I don't know, 20-some years since I first got Tales from the Crypt. And so the best thing about doing voiceover is you're not typed out by your age, you know, I get to play villains, I get to play things that don't look like me, I get to play animals. You know, I've done The Simpsons playing animals, and did Miko the Raccoon in Pocahontas, and, you know, characters like the Crypt Keeper and that kind of thing. So it's, you know, it's a fun job.
Yeah.
It's a fun job. It's hard because it takes a lot of imagination, which, you know, was one of the skills I got to use in Jack. But I also got to use my street performing skills in pantomime, doing the physical stuff. I got to use my theatrical training, you know, working with Bill.
Do you like doing now this sort of motion capture? Because now they can, you know, instead of just doing voice work, they capture your performance.
Oh, it's amazing. You know, for me, for an actor like myself, not all the actors liked it. Mm-hmm. You know, some of the actors, because it's tedious. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, technical things that they're inventing stuff as you go along because they're using as cutting edge as they can do it, you know. And, you don't have the costume. You're not wearing the costumes. You're wearing like a PVC, outfit with like things all over it, and this helmet and this whole thing. So it's not the optimum thing that you imagine yourself doing and having like your cape, and you imagine all those things. But for an actor like me that loves that kind of thing, it's a blast. You get to, it's empowering, because you know that you're going to do this performance, and you're changing your physicality, and you're changing your voice, and you're doing all this stuff, and then somebody else is going to go in and add all the little details onto your performance. And it's not just like doing voiceover, where I do voiceover and I have to imagine what they're going to do. They're going to take the lead from me in this one, and add it onto my performance. Voiceover, I'm more trying to imagine what they're going for, and trying to bring a voice that brings that to life. And very often they don't know what they're going to look like in animation either. So very often they take the lead from what you've done, and they go, "Oh, I love that, that voice. Well, we're going to make, he sounds kind of short and squat and gravelly and probably unshaven, and let's do that." And sometimes you get pictures of that's what they look like, and you try to get a voice that captures a guy that's short and squat and, has a beard and, that kind of thing. And that's how it works, But it's a process. Filmmaking is a collaborative art in the first place. And certainly motion capture is one of the cutting edge ways to that an actor has a lot of input into their performance. It's great.
Yeah,
it's great.
Well, guys, check it out. The movie Jack and the Giant Slayer out in theaters now as we speak. So after this podcast, go to your local theater.
Because if you haven't seen Jack the Giant Slayer, you don't know Jack.
You don't. You can find John at John Kassir on Twitter, Facebook. Do you have an Instagram?
I do not. I don't use Instagram, but I should. I probably should. And my website is johnkassir.com. It's down right now because we're adding more cool stuff to it. It's a really cool website. But
and that's Kassir.
That is correct, John Kassir. Usually said wrong and spelled correctly, or spelled right and said wrong. Mr. Kassir, thank you very much. I'm glad you're a fan, but it's Kassir. Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for joining us this week. Tune in next week, and in the meantime, feel free to rate and comment. Let us know your guys' thoughts on this episode. Again, we love hearing it. And JJ, where can they find you at?
I'm at jjjurgens.com and at JJ Jurgens on Twitter.
All right, and you can follow us here at AFTERBUZZ TV. Until next week, I never know how to close these out. I'll figure it out one time.
AFTERBUZZ TV.
There you go.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AFTERBUZZ TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AFTERBUZZTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AFTERBUZZ TV.
Okay.
Buzz you later.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AFTERBUZZ TV or its owners or principals.